There's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and Hall of Fame promoter, Frank Warren. Frank, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thank you. It's been a week now since Tyson Fury announced his retirement. The dust has settled, if you like. And before we talk about your reflection on it, have you spoken to him much since the announcement?
No, I spoke to him a couple of times very briefly. He's been spending a lot of time with his family. I think he's on in Disneyland at the moment.
Yes,
Um,
I've seen the thing.
so
Yeah.
he's no, he's enjoying himself, enjoying time with his family. I mean, he had a last year in camp for quite a while. With in camp if they got the cut eye, and he was in camp, I think, for a good what 10 weeks. Then the cut eye, then he went back straight in again, another few months in camp, and then he was in 3 months in camp for the last fight. So it's a long time, and he didn't get to see his family and so forth, his kids. So he's spending some quality time with them.
Have you been, I imagine probably not surprised, but have you been disappointed by the skepticism his announcement brought that people have said, well, he's retired before, it's a negotiating tactic, I think was one quote.
I couldn't care less what they say. It's irrelevant. Whatever he's going to do, he's going to do, and he's retired, and that's the end of it. It's no, people can debate it and have their opinions, but the only opinion that matters is Tyson's.
Do you expect him to come back? And if he doesn't, will you be disappointed?
At this moment in time, I don't expect him to come back. And no, I won't, because if he doesn't want to come back, that means he's contented and he's happy with his life. And if he's happy, I'm happy. He's made lots of money. He's a very, very wealthy man. He's been involved in some of the best fights of the 21st century, tough fights. He's shown what he's all about. Um, he's, as a person, what he managed to do coming back from the terrible mental problems he was having, the boozing, the substance abuse, 11, 12 stone overweight, and to come back and win a world title, to do all that has been amazing. And to suffer from bipolar as well, being diagnosed with that, and be brave enough to come out and actually debate about it and tell people and inspire people who have also suffered from it, I think is a credit to him.
Do you think he'll be appreciated more in, say, 5, 10 years' time than he has been by some elements of the media in the last few years?
Look, if nobody can appreciate what he's done in the ring, they're idiots. That's my opinion. Like, and I know boxing. I've been in boxing a long time. I've sat ringside and watched him in fights, unbelievable fights where he's been on the floor, got up, shown what his courage, his heart is. I've seen him take gunfight a world champion in his own backyard, and doing that, having lost 10 stone in weight in a very short space of time. And as I mentioned earlier, all the trials and tribulations he come through, and get a draw, get off the floor in the last round, then come out having sussed him out in the second fight. Magnificent performance again in the other guy's backyard. Broke box office records in fighting Deontay Wilder in Vegas. It's the most money any heavyweight titles ever generated there. That tells you about Tyson Fury. And the third fight was probably one of the best live heavyweight fights I've ever been to. I mean, on the floor, got up, put the other guy back. Two unbelievable warriors. I watched him in two magnificent fights with Usyk. Magnificent fights, the two best heavyweights of their generation of the 21st century. And there's nothing in those fights. Some people have their opinions. I've got my opinions, but most neutrals say agree it was a close fight, and some feel that good and highly respected people I know have felt Tyson done enough to win. But irrespective of whatever the result was, they were great fights to watch, and they were great fights. And Tyson was involved in those fights. So talk about what he's done in the ring. Talk about what he's done in inspiring people and so forth. And if people can't appreciate it, then they're not going to appreciate it. He's a great fighter. He's been a great fighter, been a brave fighter. Again, went to Germany, to the adopted backyard of Klitschko, and done a job there. He's an unbelievable fighter.
How important has he been both to yourself and to Queensbury over the last 5 or so years?
He's been very important, and I think it was a good marriage for the both of us. You know, it was good for him. It was good for us, and it worked out. And and as I say, we've shared some fantastic memories together. Certainly for me, brilliant memories. And even when he won when he fought Klitschko, it was down to. And I must say it was down to me that that fight happened because we put together the final eliminator between him and Derek. And that time Derek was on a roll. I think about 6 or 7 really good fights against top 10 opponents and had beaten them. Although I thought Derek was going to beat him,
Well,
being
yeah,
honest.
you wouldn't have made it
But he
otherwise.
bloody showed in that fight what he's all about. Derek didn't win a second of any round.
And Anthony Joshua said at the start of this year he was hoping to make the fight with Fury finally for later on this year. That's now looks like it's not going to happen. If you were part of the Joshua team, so taking your Queensbury hat off for a minute, what fight would you like to see Joshua have now?
I don't know whether he should fight. He's a very, very wealthy guy. He's had a magnificent career, Olympic gold medalist, amateur silver medalist. I thought he got robbed, by the way. I thought he won that amateur world championship. Two-time world champion. He's done brilliantly. He's made a lot of money for himself and for his family. He's well set up in life. He doesn't need to fight financially. If he does fight on, obviously he's doing it because he's a fighting man, a bit like Tyson. Um, if he does want to carry on and fight, I think him and Moses would be a great fight down the road, or him, Fabio Wardley, or Lawrence Okolie. They're all great, great fights, real good fights, good domestic bust ups.
And there's been some talk of him potentially fighting Deontay Wilder, another fight we'd have liked to have seen years ago. But it's been met with some criticism already. Pundits that we've interviewed saying they're not interested. Dan Raphael, in fact, said he doesn't give a shit about the fight, which is maybe going a bit far. What do you make of that as a contest in
Well,
2025?
again with Deontay, he's a guy who doesn't need to fight. I mean, he's done everything that's been asked of him, unless he's paid his money away. He's a very wealthy. He should be a very wealthy guy. I know some of the purse he got, so he should be a very wealthy guy. Does he need to do it? I don't know. If they make the fight, they make the fight, and it's really simple. You either buy a ticket or you don't. You pay for your pay-per-view or you don't, and that's it. No one puts your arm up your back and forces you to do these things.
Would you watch it?
Yeah, I'd watch it. I'm in the boxing business.
Fair enough. Um, Big fight that has got over the line over the last week or so is Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Obviously, nearly got over the line 2.5 years ago and fell out 2 days before the fight. We pray that doesn't happen again. What do you make of the news that that's now going ahead April in London?
Well, it's a fight that everybody's had a lot of interest in for very various reasons. Originally, it was going on in was it in O2? Was it? I can't remember
Yeah,
wherever
it was
it
the
was before it
O2.
got postponed for well publicised reasons. Been a lot of controversy the last 2 years. Obviously, their fathers are very, very famous British boxers, and by the way, happy birthday to Nigel Benn today, 61 today. I think it's will buy into it and they'll watch it, and it's got a lot of controversy around it. I think my fighters beat both of them anyway. I think Hamza Shiraz and Denzel Bentley would beat both of them. I don't think they're the best fighters in the area they come from. They are my two guys who I work with, but it's a fight that, for obvious reasons, everybody will be very, very interested in.
You've been critical in the past of the approach that Ben and his team took around the drug test failures. He's now had his suspension lifted by a national anti-doping panel. Robert Smith of the board recently said he doesn't anticipate any problems with him getting a new British license. Are you satisfied now that Conor Benner's innocent or that he's done all he can to clear his name?
I don't know the background to it. I mean, I don't know what happened behind closed doors. What happened behind closed doors happened, but the fact of the matter is, it must be cleared to box because they've said so. They're the ones who issue the right, border control issue the licenses, and you can decide whether somebody's innocent or not of what they're doing of drug uh, abuse. And if he's cleared, he's cleared. That's not our job as promoters to police the sport. I support what they say, but if somebody goes to prison for an offence, the idea is you go to prison, you serve your sentence, rehabilitate yourself, and you wipe the slate clean. And if what it seems at the moment, if somebody tests positive for drugs and they get found guilty, it seems that the sentence roughly, or the time they're suspended, is roughly 2 years. That's what we're operating under as promoters, as the sport is. They say it's 10 years, you got to respect it. If it's 20 years, it's a life ban, you got to respect it. Respect what it is and work within those parameters. So he's cleared to box.
Now, the first time round, Eubank Jr. was having to make a catch weight. This time it will be up at 160 pounds, but there's been a lot of talk about the hydration clause, which only allows him to put on 10 pounds after the fight after the weigh-in, sorry, before fight night. What do you make of that? Because I know you weren't happy with the kind of draining him down the first time round. Is
Well,
a
the first time round
rehydration
it was
clause
less,
better?
wasn't it? Wasn't it less the first time
Yeah,
round? I
that's
can't
what I'm
remember.
saying. I think it was 157 or
Yeah,
158
well,
last time.
of course I wasn't. As somebody involved in boxing, no, I was not happy with that. But he's made 160 for his last fight, I think, didn't he? I
Yeah.
believe he did. I'm not sure, but if he did, he did. Look, that's up to him and his handlers and the boxing board of control. That's what it's up to. Things like I don't know what Conor's weight's going to be. I mean, he's a welterweight or is he a light welter? So he's going to be, if there's 10 pounds on a night, it'd be 170. What's Conor going to weigh? I don't know. I have no idea. It's not my business. It's not my business. What do I think about it? I don't think, as I said, either of those guys could beat my guys. I really don't. I want to see the winner of that fight my man. That's what I want to see. I want to see that fight. And let's find out who's the best fighter in Essex.
And that could be a world title shot for the winner of Eubank Ben then, because we
If
hope
Hamza
Hamza gets
comes
the job
through,
done.
it could. And if they want to fight Denzel, they could, because Denzel's in line for a world title shot. He's number one in the WBO. They're both of them are ranked well above the other two. So whatever it is, it is. And as I say, there's no love lost between me and Chris Eubanks, that's for sure. And I hope Nigel's boy, I hope Conor goes and does the business on him.
Well, as you mentioned, there's no love lost between yourself and Chris Eubank. Is there still a legal issue between the two of
Yeah,
you?
I've issued proceedings against him.
Wow. So that could be a distraction for him heading into this fight
I
potentially.
couldn't give a shit.
That's what I would expect you to say. Just one final question on this fight. As you said, it was in the O2 when it was first scheduled. All the controversies happened since, and now they're talking about putting it in a stadium. What does that tell us about the main attraction for this fight?
It tells you that people want to watch it.
But more so now than 2.5 years ago.
If they're putting it in a bigger stadium, obviously they feel that's going to sell. So, and they're, Eddie's a very, very experienced promoter, and he feels that way. Then that's how it must be. It's going to. I think it's I think it's a ring show anyway. But if it goes on in the stadium, which is the talk, then they must feel that they'll fill it up. They're not going to waste money on. But the amount of money it costs to put a stadium show on is unbelievably expensive. So you won't be laying that money out unless you felt you could fill it up.
So controversy sells, is that a fair summation?
Well, controversy sells everything, doesn't it? No matter what it is, whether it's boxing, whether it's football, rugby match, tennis match, whatever. And controversy sells your your uh, your interviews. That's what it's all about.
We'll
We
find
sit
out
here
in
just
about now.
talking nice. If we sit here all being nice, oh everybody's lovely, we all love each other, then that's no value, is it, for you? You're not gonna People are not gonna tune in.
It's a lot more like that than it was 2 years ago, I think.
Car crashes. Let me say, if people slow down to look at a car crash on the motorway, you find most traffic jams on a motorway are down to somebody. If there's a car crash involved, it's because all the traffic slowed down to watch it.
It's a fair point. Good analogy as well. Just quickly on Dennis McCann, I know last time we spoke, you said you were waiting for a hearing. Has there been any progress on that at all?
He has. He's paid his money for his B sample. I haven't spoken to him for a couple of weeks. He's paid his money for his B sample, so that's being tested. I don't know whether the results have come back yet, which they will go back to him because that's who. Because obviously it involves him personally, and the boxing board in control in the meantime suspended him, and UCAD will obviously come up with a date for a hearing.
Now, Robert Smith did an interview with The Times, and he said they're taking a close look at a particular Dr. Usman Sajjad, who has worked with Conor Benn previously. Dennis McCann he was pictured with. I don't know if they've worked together. But more notably, he did a podcast a couple of years ago where he talked about ways to avoid drug testing or avoid failing drug tests. Do you know anything about this particular doctor or any relationship he might have with Dennis?
Um, to my knowledge, I've never met him, and I don't know in what context he talks in his podcast. Was he saying this is how you cheat, or was he saying this is the way people could cheat? I don't know. I mean, I've not heard the podcast, but at the end of the day, anybody who advocates cheating through drugs in boxing, and I got my, and I'm very firm on my belief about this. Boxers. I don't believe boxers say, where can I get a drug to make me a better fighter? It's normally the people around them. It's either the trainer, I know it might be the manager, and certainly you've got to feel that most trainers will know what's going on if they know anything about their fighter. They will know what's happening. You look at the shape of them, how they look. So if anybody gives performance enhancing drugs or are involved in it with boxers, they should be banned. And I don't think, and I keep saying this, for me, it shouldn't be a short ban. But that's what it is. So we work within those parameters of what is set down, the legislation. But at the end of the day, you want to stop it, then there's the only way you stop it is to be harsh. It's like knife crime. You want to stop knife crime, you've got to you have to have an appropriate measure to deter people from doing that. But if you don't, it's an epidemic in this country. It continued to happen.
Yesterday, we saw the launch press conference for an all-women's show, the second one that Boxer have done, this time headlined by Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price. Raven Chapman's on there against Karis Artingstall. Are you still working with Raven? And if so, does that mean you're working with Boxer?
If she's on that card, I haven't spoken to George about that. But if she's on the card, then fantastic, good for her.
Good step forward for yourselves and Boxer potentially as well.
We have no problem in putting our fighters in. We don't, if we feel they're not good enough, we won't put them in. It's as simple as that. You know, it's not about working them. I mean, if that's a better opportunity for Raven, fabulous. It's a bit like Ben Whittaker. If he's got a better opportunity to earn more money, fight, win a rematch with our guy, then we'll put it on, and vice versa.
What is the latest on that as you brought it up?
We offered him a huge purse and they didn't want to know. And the purse that we've offered our man, they've not matched.
So as far as you're aware, it probably won't happen next.
I've got no idea. I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't have any dialogue with old Benji. George deals with him.
Good old Benji. We spoke to Joe Gallagher yesterday, who said he was disappointed in from his opinion, Joe Joyce has pulled out of talks to fight Lawrence Okolie. Not next time. I think Joe was going to have a warm up first, he said. But he was disappointed. Joe felt it was a done deal and now isn't. What's your take on that?
Look, we can't force people to fight. It is what it is. I'm sure if he's disappointed, of course he's disappointed. We're trying to put on the best fights, but at the end of the day, Joe's coming off of weren't the greatest year for him last year, and he knows he's in a situation where he can't afford to lose his next fight. So I'm not sure, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll make that fight over the summer. Who knows? But in the meantime, both of them will fight because they're with us, and our job is to give them fights.
Who else could be in the running for Lawrence Okolie?
We're working on the fights at the moment as we speak.
And any more news on Moses potentially fighting for that WBA regular title?
Moses will fight in March.
Which is before the April date when he would need to win the title to be the youngest ever world champion.
It's actually May. It's actually May the 19th.
Right. So, I mean, you could get him out twice in that time, but presumably it will just be March. Is there any chance of it being Pulev?
One fight at a time. He
Could it
was
be
only
Pulev?
20. He was only 20 years old 2 weeks ago.
Could it be Pulev in March?
We'll look at all the options, Dan, and then we'll make a considered decision. I mean, he's a young fighter. It's not a pissing contest. It's about making the right fights.
Now, a comment that came up on our YouTube channel, and I wanted to ask you about it. Someone was saying that with the rise of His Excellency, Turki Al Sheikh, and Riyadh season, he's gradually making promoters, traditional promoters like yourself, Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, and so on, redundant. That he eventually will be able to take over the sport without the need for any of you guys. I'm certainly not endorsing that comment, but what's your take on that? And How has your role as a promoter changed since HE got involved?
Not changed at all. We're promoting. We got what? We got three really good quality shows coming up on for the first quarter of this year, which are on TNT. Then we are launching some seriously big shows on TNT, and we continue to
Zone.
be partners with Seller in promoting fights in Riyadh for the Riyadh season.
Has it made your job easier though, in that there's a lot more money flowing now?
It always makes jobs easier when there's a lot of money floating around. I mean, no matter what walk of life you're in, everybody who goes to work to earn money, and certainly the boxers do that in the toughest sport of all. Yeah,
Could you foresee a future where Riyadh season, the group, decides to try and do stuff without any help from promoters? Could that be a
I've got
future?
no idea. I can't. Who knows? Maybe they do. Will maybe, but they're not promoters. Riyadh season. Riyadh season is an event. It's there to promote Riyadh. And you look last week. So Anthony Hopkins was out there with the symphony that he wrote with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra as part of the Joy Awards, which is part of the Riyadh season. Um, there was Cuba Gooding Jr. There was Morgan Freeman. There was what's his name, Matthew Shaughnessy. Loads of people. A couple of weeks before that, you had a Dior fashion. I think it was Dior. A couple of fashion shows. Um, J Lo and Celine Dion performed there. All sorts of things going on. That's what the Riyadh season is. And it's not just Western events. You know, it's stuff from other parts of the world, from the Middle East, the Far East. It's a cultural event, and boxing is part of that. So is the WWE. So is the UFC. That's what it is. And so that's what people have to say. And you know, Riyadh, I think, and His Excellency has said this on numerous occasions, are not promoters.
So is it a case then that they provide the money and a kind of rough outline of what they're looking for, and then the people that do the actual nuts and bolts are yourself, Eddie, Spencer Brown?
We work together. We sit down, collaborate. We've invested in fighters as promoters from very early in their career, and stayed with them, win or lose, and brought them through. And some of them have reaped the benefit from that. You know, Nick Ball done brilliantly out there, but this fight and next fight are in the UK.
Is that part of the long-term strategy then for Queensbury? Is that some guys will make their names out there, but then come back as ready-made headliners in their own cities?
Not at all. The strategy for Queensbury is to do the best for the fighters and pick and boxing such a fluid sport that whatever the opportunities arise, you can, and you've got the fighter that you feel can benefit from that, you take the opportunity. That's what we do. But to get there, the fighter's got to be at a certain stage of his career, and it's our job as promoters, all of us, is to invest and build that fighter to be able to do that, and obviously to build his profile.
In
They don't just
past kind
appear
of
from nowhere. You know, we invested in Daniel Dubois 10 years ago. Moses 3 years ago started sponsoring, and many other fighters.
So in the past year or so, I've noticed a bit of a difference when interviewing fighters. They talk about their long-term goals, and you always hear, world title, making a certain amount of money. A lot more of them now are saying they want to appear on a Riyadh season show. Is that something you've noticed with your stable as well, guys aiming for that?
Yeah, same as fighters used to say they wanted to fight in Vegas.
Vegas,
Same as
yeah.
saying they wanted to fight in Madison Square Gardens. Their ambitions, and well, you know, the facts of the matter is Riyadh is the boxing capital of the world. That's a fact for the big fights.
And you're one of the one promoters in the UK that works the closest with Riyadh season. So is that an advantage for you guys? It's a carrot you can offer to fighters, potential signings?
You know, we're with them because we do a great job, and we do a
So
great job. We do brilliantly for our fighters. We school our fighters. We blood them, and that's why we're there. And you know, and we enjoy what we do. You know, we went and you know, going back to October 2023, I can remember saying at the time, "This is going to be a game changer," and everyone was taking the piss out of me. What's he on about, that silly old bastard? But the fact of the matter is, it was a game changer, and last year was a fabulous year. So I don't care what anybody says, to be quite honest, and what their opinions are. We do what's best for our fighters because that's the business we're in. And if our fighters are doing well, then Queensbury are doing well.
How long do you see it going on for Riyadh season and its dominance of the boxing scene?
Well, as long as as long as there is a appetite for boxing, and certainly with His Excellency, he has a massive appetite for boxing. He's just bought Ring magazine. You've just seen that. He's just launched the magazine again in a printed form, and he's got other ideas as what he wants to do with it. Which is, excuse me, which is brilliant for boxing.
And just before I let you go, I just remembered we talked about Eubank Ben earlier. There was a report in, I think it was also the Times, or it might have been the Telegraph. No, I'm pretty sure it was the Times. I'll correct myself later on if I'm wrong in the description. But they said that sources tell them that Sky Sports are not sure about whether they want to show Eubank Ben or not because of the controversial past of both fighters. Do you think that's, credible that a big entity like Sky would veer away from something, a huge amount of money, presumably, for, moral reasons, ethical reasons?
You got to ask them. I don't deal with Sky. I'm at the moment with TNT, and then April onwards we're with the Zone. I can't speak with what happens at Sky. They've obviously, if that's the case, that's the case. But I honestly could not. I can't make a comment on that either way. That's their business, and that's a fight that I am not involved with or have any interest in that fight.
As a promoter, would it ever stop you, fighters with controversial past, if you thought it'd make a huge amount of money?
If a boxer's licensed by a bona fide body, in this case, Boxing Board of Control is a bona fide body, and they are the governing body who basically all shows in Riyadh take place under their governance. That's it. That's the end of it. What a TV company wants to do, or what a punter wants to do, that's everybody's choices. Their choices.
But as you said earlier about it not being up to a promoter to police the sport, I'm assuming equally it's not up to a promoter to be kind of the moral compass in the sport either. It's,
Well, what is the moral compass of it? If the border control licenses, if somebody comes out, a carpenter goes to prison for, I don't know, theft or bashing somebody, whatever it is, he breaks the law and he serves his time and he comes out. What then happens to that carpenter? What you got to say? He can't work as a carpenter anymore. That's the end of his job. No one can employ him. If once you go through the process, you've served your time, then the objective is once you've served your time, you paid the penalty, you're supposed to be able to get on with your life, and that's what's supposed to happen. With, as I've said earlier, with the regarding drugs in sport, if the penalty is, which it seems is roughly 2 years now for somebody, that's what it seems to be, if they're found guilty. If that's what it is, that's what UCAD have determined. And the border control, not me. That's what they've determined. If it's 10 years, you respect it. If it's throw away the key, you respect it. It's not my job. And if somebody has a license back, and I've worked with people who've been banned from boxing and have come back after serving bans and so forth, that's what it is. I ain't gonna hold my hand. I haven't got to feel bad about it. I'm not putting a fighter on that's banned. I'm putting a fighter on who's licensed.
And just to end on a more positive note, how much should we be looking forward to Chisora against Wallin?
It's going to be a good fight. It's Derek's 49th fight. Here's a guy that I said should have retired, and he's proved me wrong. And he was in a great fight. Him and Joyce was a fabulous fight last year. The pair of them put in a very, very good fight in the UK. Him and Wallin, that's a tough, tough fight. It's a tough fight for Derek. He wants to get to 50. He wants to get the magic 5-0. He's got to win this fight. So there's a lot on the line, and it's in a fabulous arena. It's the best. The Co-op Arena is, without a doubt, the best venue in Europe, without a doubt.
And just going back to Riyadh season as a final one, J-Lo or Celine Dion? Who are you picking?
Say again?
I said J-Lo or Celine Dion? Who are you picking?
I'd go with J-Lo.
Yeah, why?
Why?
Yeah, what's your reasoning?
I prefer her to Celine Dion.
The music, I hope you're talking about, but
Dan, let's not stop going there, boy. You get in trouble again. Behave yourself.
yeah, no one wants that. Frank, really appreciate it, mate. Glad to see you're doing well, and let's catch up again soon.
We certainly will, mate. Be good.
Take care.